Voice acting.
Voice acting, there it is. So, hi everybody, I'm Spike Spencer, and I'll let the other amazing people introduce themselves.
Good morning, or good afternoon. Hi, I am Tiffany Grant, and I'm very happy to be here.
Hi, I'm Buckland. I am in games such as Nier Automata, Genshin Impact, all sorts of things, anime, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Kakegurui, Demon Slayer, etc. So looking forward to meeting all you guys.
Awesome.
Excellent. All right, I think it's just a Q&A, so you Q, we'll A.
Yes.
What do we got? Who wants to say something?
Do we want to do our origin stories? Do you guys want to know that?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I've never done a panel with Kira, so
Yeah.
I like your.
I don't care.
I don't care if anyone.
Okay, fine. I don't care.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say anything crazy, I think.
Okay, maybe.
Am I?
So, what is
am I starting?
your origin story? I would like to know.
Okay, so my origin story is very different, I feel like, from a lot of actors. So when I was 16, I got really into the anime and video game scene, and I kind of realized there are people who do those voices. So I decided I wanted to do that, but growing up in a place where there was zero opportunity for voice acting, I started doing stuff on the internet. This was I always say I'm showing my age here. This is in the days before YouTube was a thing, and before monetized content online, or most social media was really a thing. So this was web forums, those kind of days. And I would email, does anyone remember newgrounds.com? Okay, so I would basically just email every Flash animator who was on the front page and be like, hey, I do voices, do you need anybody? And because, this was, again, before things were monetized and this and that, they're like, sure, I was just doing the voices myself and pitching it up or whatever. So, so basically I was every other female voice on the site from 2005 to 2010. So that was kind of an interesting thing that I did, and I also founded one of the online communities known as the Voice Acting Club, which we'll talk about later. And then I started taking acting classes. This is up in my hometown, up in Alaska, where I was born and raised. And my acting teacher at the time kind of really hammered home the whole well, it's not so much about the voice, it's about the acting thing. So I feel that was kind of my moment as a performer, where I was okay, I'm gonna understand how to get into the head of the character, all that kind of stuff. And then in 2011, I moved to the LA area and started working on some anime and some video games. And 2018, I went full time, and now I'm here. Wow, that's very cool. Wow, I love that story. That is awesome. Fine. You want me? Yeah, unless you want me.
Hello. Well, we're kind of going this way.
Well,
it's fine. Okay. So I've been an actor for 30 years. I started acting in high school. Went to the University of Houston. Got a major, a baccalaureate degree with honors. The major in drama. Nobody cares. But I did do that. Like she was saying, the acting. I'm an actor first and foremost. Then I was acting in a film with Amanda Wynn Lee, who plays Rey in Evangelion, and we just were yucking it up and being silly, and she said, come do this acting thing. I'm like, what is it? She says, it's anime. I'm like, is it, what, cartoons? She goes, not really. I said, does it pay? She said, yes. I said, I'm there. And so I went in and I did Super Atragon. Was my first role ever. This is at A-Division in Houston, by the way. And yeah, so I did, gosh, did anime for a long time while I was there. Then I moved out to LA in 2005 and did a whole bunch more stuff and been doing it for a long time. So, I'm old. That's all I have to say about that.
You want to talk about the times before the internet?
Oh gosh, yeah. We'll tell you about Evangelion, the original, man, how long it took. Oh my God, it's a great story.
Oh, wow.
Tiffany.
Yeah, well, my background was in theater. I didn't get a degree. I did go to college and take theater. You know, I took theater classes like junior high, high school, college. I was doing all of that. I did community theater. And after AD Vision had started, later they were called ADV Films, but in Houston, which is where I'm from, go Astros. Yeah, we're World Series champs, y'all. So I was just kind of in the right place at the right time, but I also had that background. I was an actor. This was to me, it's like, I didn't really know how to pursue voice acting. I sort of had this interest in it, but I had no idea how one would go about such a thing. And ADV had started up. They released a few shows that were subtitled, and they were like, hey, we're gonna start dubbing this stuff into English. We've never hired any actors. How do we do that? And so they said to their friends, like, if anybody knows some actors, then tell them to come to our audition. And they also put an ad, by the way, in the Houston Chronicle, like the big local newspaper, just like in the Help Wanted section, which is really funny that all these people just showed up who were like, you know, out of work accountants or something, I don't know. But anyway, so a friend of mine from junior high who knew one of the people at ADV, and he heard about that, and he wasn't an actor, but he was like, oh, I remember Tiffany doing theater, like in junior high and high school. I was like, she's an actor. And so he called me and he told me, and I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. Sure, I would love to do that. So I called and I made an appointment. I went down there and I did the audition, and I got hired, like, right after my audition. They were like, you're gonna play the female lead in this show. And I was going, wow, that's incredible. It was my first paid acting job. And so that was how I got started. And then because of my timing, because I got there and I worked on the first show that ADV dubbed, naturally when they went back and they were going to dub their second show, they're like, well, we need our very most experienced people. It's like the people who have worked on the first one. And so that was where like the whole dubbing industry really started in Texas, was in Houston. It was a couple years later that Funimation started dubbing their own stuff in-house. But anyway, that's how I got in. And there you go.
Thank you. Good night.
All right.
How about some questions? How about y'all
please, now that we're
ask
warmed
us
up.
chat?
So, what's the worst role you had to do for money?
What's the worst role we had to do for money?
Oh my God,
My first marriage. Too soon? I don't know. That's all right. Gosh.
My worst role I had to do for money, and it was a project that you worked on, and it's not anime. It was this instructional video type thing for Compact Computers. If you guys remember Compact Computers, they were based in Houston, and they used to do they had so much money, you guys, and they used to do all of these like in-house sort of like training videos and stuff, and they would get to be really elaborate. And they did one that was an X-Files based.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes.
And you played...
I was the Duchovny character, wasn't I?
Yes, you were. He was David Duchovny. Well, the woman who was the casting director on that project, she is like batshit crazy, you guys, but Karen Gourmet. Yeah, so the project is like shooting tonight, and they need people who are going to be the space aliens conducting experiments on this person. So they had already made these alien costumes, and the casting director, Karen, she would never see me for anything, but she called me and she said, Tiffany, I really need you to help me out. I really need you to come and be this alien tonight, and it's gonna pay $60. And I wanted to like get on her good side, so I was like, oh, of course, Karen, I'll totally do it. And they had made these costumes, and they were really small, so they needed to find people who were small to be in these costumes. And it was horrible. It was made of foam with like duct tape on it, and then they spray painted it, and you couldn't move inside of it. You couldn't hardly breathe or eat or drink or anything, and I was in this thing for hours. And they like attached these metal utensils to our hands. There was another girl there who somehow got suckered into doing it, but that's absolutely the worst job that I ever did for money that I agreed to do. Yeah.
You know, okay.
It was horrible.
You want to go?
That.
I don't have anything to top that.
Okay, I got one. All right, so again, Houston, doing an industrial film for Uncle Ben's Rice.
Okay.
And we were middle-aged mutant Binja turtles. So me and my buddy, you know, and I was a martial artist, so I was doing kicks and stuff and nunchucks and all that kind of stuff. So we're in these suits, and you know, it's just green spandex that they've spray painted, and they got the shell on, and you know, you know, it wasn't really good, but it was decent, you know. It was just silliness, right? But the funny thing was, the paint kind of wore off or whatever, so they spray painted it again with me in the suit.
Oh, no.
I didn't think about it at the time.
The material is porous, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So that night, I had a date, and it went well. So she was staying over, and everything was fine until in the middle of the night I woke up, and I was red, and I was getting redder by the minute. And I'm like, you stay here, I'm gonna go to the emergency room. And I'm like, first date. It's like, oh, welcome to this date. And so I go to the emergency room, and they give me cortisone shots or whatever, and like, you're having an allergic reaction. To this day, I used to be able to like stay in the sun a long time. I've got American Indian background and stuff, and I was just like, yeah, give me that sun. I can't do it anymore because of that date. Yeah, I have to be very careful.
Latex paint? Were you having a reaction to
Sure.
latex? Or?
I don't even know what it was. It was just this green spray paint, like, oh, you'll be fine. It's like, oh, man. And then I get back, and my day was there. And next one, I'm like, everything's fine.
Yeah.
I just went to the, you know, hospital. It's all good.
Did you get a second date?
I did. We did it for quite a while. It was very lovely. Anyway, if you can get through that one, you're having a relationship.
But you still must have a worse job than you did for funny.
I mean, yeah, like, there's like one go-to story, but it wasn't even the role, it was just the experience.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like I avoided a lot of the like really crazy stuff just because I don't have an on-camera background, and you know, in voice, like sometimes you'll play characters that maybe aren't always written the best, but you know, we'll always try to find something and make that character well-rounded, and you know, whatever you can kind of get into with them. But because I came from like the online indie scene, and I did so many projects for like indie game devs, indie filmmakers and stuff who are mostly wonderful. But when I had first moved to LA, I got like an indie game job that was going to record online, and sometimes, you know, like when we go in, we record on anime or games or whatever, we have like an actual voice director, like someone who knows how to direct actors, and you know, a lot of times they were an actor themselves, all that kind of stuff. But when you have these smaller projects, a lot of times it's just the project creator who's like directing, and sometimes they don't know how to ask for what they want, they don't know how to, you know, talk to actors, stuff like that. So this guy, he was like, trying to remember, he was like, okay, so I'm just gonna say each line how I want you to say it, and then you say it back to me.
Oh, no.
So no, like, just like line reading every single line, and then he was just very like rude, just treated me very badly. And so at the end of it, when he wanted me to play another character, I was like, you know, I think you can just replace me, like it's fine, you know, it wasn't even paying enough to like be worth like how I was being treated. And he said, that's okay, voice actors are like instant ramen, you can just find anybody to do it. Oh. So I still tell that story to that day because it's like such a legend.
What's up?
Oh no, it was, I mean, I had just moved to LA at the time, but it was just a random person on the internet. And it was really funny because he made up all these stories. He's like, I'm a big film producer, and I'm gonna see that you get blacklisted everywhere. And of course, you know, it's all just talk when people say that. So when I told this story to the moderators of my voice acting server years later, we decided, I remembered the guy's name, I won't say it, but we decided to look up his IMDb. He had one credit for like this horrible like CG film that he produced, which was just like very, it was like meme-worthy stuff. And so all that talk about like, I'm such a big producer, I'll see that you never work again and all that. And then my IMDb had like hundreds of credits already by that point. So it was just really funny because he was like so rude to me.
Yeah, and the whole thing about like the line reading, I mean, people who aren't actors, you just don't understand how demoralizing that is, and rude. It's very insulting.
I mean, I don't mind it from time to time. If it's like, well, we're not quite getting it. If you know who the director is and they're good, like if we're Wendy or something, and she's like, you know, let's try this, and she'll say, okay, perfect, great, I'll do it. Exactly.
Right, but not for every
But no, my
line.
God, for every line, that'd be ridiculous. Like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah, that's not okay. I I mean,
Why don't you just hire a parrot?
So like I'm trying to get into voice directing now, and a lot of it is, okay, here's what I know to do and what not to do based on like the directors I liked and didn't like working with as an actor, right?
Very cool. Oh, I got one other story. Okay, so I told this in my panel this morning. So I was a children's birthday party performer for 6 years in Houston. And it was what? Oh, White. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, Bill and Helen.
Sorry, yeah.
And yeah, so it was great. I mean, it was actually good money. It wasn't that difficult, except, you know, you're in the summer, and let's say you're in the Barney costume, and they're supposed to say, you can have this indoors with the AC going. And of course, they didn't. No, it's outdoors in the afternoon in Houston in the summer.
No, that's
And sometimes I wasn't the first person in the suit. That got you, didn't it? It's like the word squelch comes to mind. Yeah, that's pretty gross. And also, you have not lived until you've had your butt beat by 10 6-year-olds. I was in a Power Ranger suit, and literally I'm in the helmet, and we can only breathe and speak through this little bitty hole that is covered in mesh, because the helmet is tucked in. So you come in, and the first thing we did was, you know, a flurry of kicks and punches and everything, and you're going, and then you do the show, and you're with the kids, and the kids are sitting there, and they're relatively well behaved for the most part, and I only see the parents are in the back, so they're watching, and I hear ding dong, and it's like, this is in slow motion to me. I'm over here doing something in my bag, and I turn, and I see the two parents look at each other like, oh. So they turn, go down, and just as I turn, and they go, I see them leaving, the kids know that they just left, so they bum rush me. And where do you think a 6-year-old's arm lands when he punches? I didn't see it coming. I'm just like, and there's no padding. I'm in tights. I'm like, oh God. And the other kids thought it was hysterical, so they join in. So I'm here, I'm battling a little army of Chuckies, and like, stop, quick, ow, get my ass kicked right here. And I look around, there's no parents. So finally I just start going, whoa. I'm throwing the kids in Chucky fashion, like, and they come back at me. And so I was like, bam, finally I just go, sit down! They're like, and I'm like, this Power Ranger is leaving. And they're like, no. I said, can you behave yourself? Yes. Are you sure? Yes. I'm thinking $80. Okay, I'm a professional. All right. And then the parents come back in.
And they missed the whole
Missed the whole thing. They saw nothing.
Well, I'm thinking that the kids think that you're kind of like, you know, you're a real Power Ranger and you're like, you know, superhero basically, and you can take a punch to the crotch. And,
Yes.
Yeah.
You would think.
Yeah. I did children's theater for years and years, and I was Snow White. I played Snow White for like 14 years. But there was a point when, you know, Snow White was like passed out on the floor, and I felt something. I mean, I'm trying to be asleep in my apple coma or whatever, and I can feel something going on with my head. And what I was told later by the people who were not on the floor sleeping is that these little monster children, at least one of them was stomping on my head. It was mostly getting the wigs. It wasn't like right on my head. It was mostly getting the wig. But still, I was like, what are they doing to my head? What is happening? Because you don't know. You know. Yeah.
Oh, one other. Okay, this wasn't me, but this is hysterical. This is in the Barney suit. My buddy was in the Barney suit, and this kid just kept punching him and punching him. And it was like a hula hoop, and there's plenty of room, but it still hurts because when you hit that thing, the head rattles and smacks you in the head, and it's like, you know, stop it. And so he grabs the kid. So this kid's probably 12, 13, something like that. So he just little douche. Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh, the kids have the thing, and then there's the big brother who always wants to, look at me, I'm so cool. Punch. And so he grabs the kid and gives him a big old hug, and he squeezes him in real tight. And so weird, you know, the big Barney costume, he got this big dinosaur head, and we see through the mouth. So the mouth is a big smile, but it's mesh. So he brings the kid, brings the head down.
Oh, God.
Right in the kid's face. And then he pushes his head forward so the kid can see him through the mouth. He goes, "Help me, kid, Barney's not nice, he ate me."
Well, just get that
That's
down,
hysterical.
nightmares.
Kid's still in therapy, I think, probably.
That's awesome.
Anyway, I go stories for those for days. Anyway, what else you got?
Question?
Yes, we're back there.
Alright, so at any point was there a particular role that any of you really wanted, but for one reason or another it just didn't work out, whether it be conflict of interest, representation?
Okay, at any point, was there a role that we really, really wanted that we didn't get for some reason?
All of
All of them. Thank you.
Well, a particular one that really just kind of, you really wanted it, you really wanted to be.
So many of them. I mean, seriously, so many. We read so many things.
I wouldn't audition for something that I didn't want. And I mean, really, the vast majority, like 95, 99, whatever, enormous percentage of the stuff that you audition for, you're not going to book those jobs. I mean, yeah, there's been some that I wanted more than others, but still, I don't audition for something that I didn't want to do. I just don't.
One of the things we say in like the communities where I mentor aspiring actors, one thing I try to get everyone to get used to is the concept of like sending and forgetting, because when you're like in a market like LA or Dallas or Houston, you're competing against a ton of other actors, and even more so now that you know, with like more stuff going worldwide and this and that, after COVID, it's kind of like you're just competing against so many other great actors for the same part. So a lot of times I tell people, you know, just do your best at the audition, send it off, try to forget about it, and then if you get that email that says, hey, you booked the role, it's a really, really nice like surprise. And
It's Christmas.
Yeah, you have to do it and forget it. The number one job, still to this day, that I wanted to get and I didn't get, I actually had a callback for it, which is very, very rare in voiceover, but it was the ongoing announcer for Mattress Firm, because that job would have paid like so freaking much money, and I knew it was down to like 5 people, and they actually had us to come in and do a callback at the ad agency. So that was my white whale, but yeah, there's a lot of ones that are pretty close underneath that.
Questions? Anyone? Yes, somebody with a hat. You, sir.
I just wanted to know what you plan in the future.
What? I'm sorry, louder.
I was wondering if you had any specific voice acting in the future.
Any specific voice acting things in the future right now? Well, we can announce one that just got announced yesterday, apparently.
Yeah.
It's a huge video game, right? It's Nikkei. Does anybody know that one?
It's not super kid friendly. It's very you know, anime waifu design. So you know, maybe don't play with like younger siblings or anything. But yeah, we worked on that, and I also helped cast it.
Wow.
There you go.
Very cool.
Love it.
I worked way back, I think in February, I worked on a visual novel. It's a sequel to Angel Wings. It's called Angel Wings Endless Night, and just got announced this week. So that is coming out in, I think, May. I think that's what was announced. So that is something that I have coming up. And then the Girls in Panzer Das Finale films, we've done the first 3, so, you know, I don't think it would be a big reveal for me to say that at some point we're going to do the next 3 whenever they're ready to go, but yeah.
Cool. Is it?
What's the daily routine? What's the voice actor daily routine?
Voice actor daily routine?
Yes, indeed.
Let's see, wake up, cry. No, it's awesome. You know, it is what it is. It just depends. Some days you don't have any auditions, some days you have a bunch of them. Some days you have a gig, sometimes you don't. I mean,
Yeah.
you do what you do. One of the things I stress when I'm coaching is say, hey, have a life. Do something else. Your auditions take a little bit of time, and then you got the rest of the day. I play with my kids. You know, that's what I do. And I work on writing and podcasting and different things like that. So, you know, that's pretty much it for me.
I will say one of the best pieces of acting advice that I got was be a well-rounded human, because it will make you a more well-rounded performer, and that really stuck with me.
Yep.
I like that. Yeah.
Oh, and I cook a lot. I'm a chef, so I love to cook.
I don't really have too much to add to that. Yeah, someday I some days I have a lot of auditions, some days I have none, some days I have a couple, whatever. Yeah, do the best that I can, and like Kira said, it's really, and I got that advice too years and years ago from one of my acting coaches in Houston, Brandon.
Oh, yeah.
And he would say, you know, you do your audition, whether it's on camera, voiceover, whatever it is, you put your, you know, your heart and your soul in it, you do your very best that you can for that audition, and then you walk out that door, you set down the microphone, whatever, you're done, and then that's, you know,
Forget about
move
it,
on
do
with your
something
life.
else.
You've got to do something else.
Absolutely. Yes.
So I know you all said that you like doing a lot of your roles, but like what would be your absolute favorite role you've ever done?
Okay, what would be our absolute favorite role we've ever done? Colonel Kled from League of Legends.
Wow. Just about any time I get to play a critter. I love playing critters so much. That's just brings me a lot of joy. It's really fun.
I'm sure this surprises absolutely no one if you follow me on social media, but Jolene Cujo, like, you know, despite, I know I was like, yeah, we can't, like, get too attached to anything, but this was, like, my one exception. Everybody has that one thing where it's like, I would do anything to play this character. I got into JoJo's in 2013. I literally got, like, a Joestar tattoo and everything like that, and it was, like, the biggest dream of my life for 8 years to play this character when the anime adaptation happened, and I was like, so when it finally came, I was like so nervous auditioning for her because I was like, well, I've prepared for like basically my entire life for this role, and I could get it or I could not, you know, and more likely not. But I just tried so hard to like be ready for that opportunity when it came, and because I prepared so much, I feel like that's kind of what helped, you know, like I understood the character, all this kind of stuff. And so when I got that email, because everyone's like, did you cry when you got the email? And I was like, it didn't feel real to me. Like I couldn't process it even until like the series dropped and I like saw my name in the credits and it still didn't feel real.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what is the hardest role y'all think you've had to do so far?
What is the hardest role
Like for voice acting.
the hardest voice acting role we've had to do so far? I'm gonna have to go with Kled again because it was so rough on my voice, but it was worth every second.
One of the most difficult roles that I did, it was a physically challenging thing, and it's probably something that no one in here has even seen. It was from, I think, 2005, Ponyo DigiCarrot. There's been like several different iterations of the DigiCarrot universe, the series, whatever. And this character that I played had this kind of really high-pitched and scratchy voice. I mean, the closest I could say is maybe sort of like Yoda-esque, kind of in that realm. And I guess when I auditioned, I was like, this is a really cool voice for this character. And then when I get in the studio and I start doing like, oh my God, I'm killing myself. So yeah, when I actually got in the studio and I started having to sustain it for more than like a 2-minute audition, it was very, very painful, and I did not enjoy doing that. I mean, the character's really cute, and I bought some of the figures, but still, it was
Yeah,
very
that's
painful.
one of those, if the audition hurts you, you probably shouldn't do the gig.
I don't even remember that. I don't remember that the audition hurt or anything, but I was like, yeah.
We're not thinking about it. We're like, oh yeah, I can do this. I can
Yeah,
sustain
I-
this.
oh,
You
yeah.
watch me.
Yeah, I can be an anthropomorphic balloon all day.
I mean,
Why
who
not?
can't, you know?
Right.
That's-
Who among us hasn't, really?
Okay, who else? What do we got? Way back there.
Have you ever worked while you were sick, like a cold or
Oh
bronchitis?
man. Yeah. Prior to COVID, we did that.
I worked with COVID remotely. I did not go in studio and, you know, see anybody, but I had sessions while I had COVID, and that was pretty rough.
I can remember one time going in to work on, I believe it was when we were doing Martian Successor to Desco, like in the late 90s. And I did have this cold, and I was really stuffy. And I think, you know, I'm an actor. I can act like I'm not sick. Well, the problem was I went in and I didn't sound like the character. And the director, Matt, ended up sending me home. He's like, no, leave. You don't sound like your character. So, yeah. But then, I mean, I've done theater before, because in theater, I mean, you're not expected to, you know, every night is a brand new performance. So you don't have to sound, you don't have to voice match anything. And that was, oh my God, that was bad. I was so freaking sick. But it was community theater. We did not have understudies, so the show must go on, and I had to perform and act like I wasn't sick.
Evangelion rebuilds 3, the first time around, in Funimation. Flew me out to Dallas. Somehow I got something on the way, and it was rough. It was, my voice was wrong, and it was weird like this. You can hear it in the rebuild some places, that, and it's so bizarre. Because I had everything you could possibly imagine, you know, health-wise here. I had vitamins, I had spray, I had, you name it, I had it. And I'm in there, and I'm like, you know, sorry guys, we can do it, we can make it happen. So we were going through and doing it, and it was fine, but then, you know, some of it was just like that voice, you're like, dude, that's not Shinji at all. That's like some weird thing. So they called me back in to do some retakes. So I went and I did the retakes, and I'm listening, and they really only wanted to replace like 2 words. It's like, oh, this is a different definition or whatever, we're going to say it this way. I said this way, and I'm listening to the thing, and I'm like, you guys can hear my voice in this, right? I didn't say anything, but I was like going, it sounded like this. I don't want to get in the robot. It was so bad, and I was like, you got to be kidding me. But apparently it sounded fine to other people. I mean, I was harder on myself, but I was like, man, that was rough. You know, it's hard. I mean, you can't do that anymore now. Everybody's like going, burn the studio. All right, yes.
As far as like live camera acting versus being in the booth recording, is there things you prefer over one or the other? Like that you don't have to remember stage directions and other things like that?
They're totally, yeah. So on camera acting or being in the booth, which do you prefer? I'm all about the booth all day long, except depending on what the job is. I mean, if it's a film job, you know, I want to do film. I'd love to do that. I've had scenes with 4 Academy Award nominees, 2 winners. You know, I've had like this, that close, and that's freaking amazing. You know, if you want to do that, yes, Tommy Lee Jones, I want to work with you. Dear God, you know. One of the funniest things you'll ever hear is Tommy Jones actually laughing. It's true, he's got a great laugh. He's a funny guy. I'm like, that's not what I've seen in my lifetime. But being in the booth is, to me, it's quick, it's good. You don't have to do a whole bunch of stuff that, you know, that you'd have to do, or like hurry up and wait all day long in your trailer and then go do this scene and then stop. It's hard. And makeup, oh, I hate makeup. And so yeah, you can pop in the booth in your, you know, comfy sweats and just rock it out. And yeah, I love that. I wholly prefer that.
Yeah,
for sure.
I 100% prefer voiceover to doing anything on camera. And I mean, I said years ago, I was like, I honestly don't care if I never do anything on camera again. I mean, I haven't had, holy macaroni, I have not had the amount of on-camera film and television work that Spike has had. But yeah, there's just so much waiting around, and what I love about voiceover is that it's happening right now. I mean, you get to the studio, yeah, you know, the director's going to tell you a little bit about the project, this is who your character is, and so forth, and kind of set you up there, check your levels or whatever. But basically, within, you know, the first 5 minutes or so, you get to the studio, you're working, you're doing it. It's happening right now. You don't have to wait for, you know, them to set up the lights or fix your makeup or your costume or whatever. I mean, I love the immediacy of it. It's fast. I just love it so much. And I still get that, the acting experience. I still get that rush, that buzz. Yes.
Oh, well, I was going to say I only do VO. Like, that's always been my path. I mean, I think I would have liked to do, if I had been born a conventionally attractive person, I would have liked to do certain things like hosting and presenting for, like, video game stuff and things like that. I mean, now I Twitch stream, which is like sort of an extension of that, but just like with my gameplay screen. But yeah, I think one of the things that's really nice about voiceover is that we can play anybody that we can vocally fit. Like, we're not limited to how we look. You know, I can play like young boys, I can play little girls, I can play like mature women, I can play creatures, you know, whatever. It's like on camera, you're so like limited your archetypes to what you physically look like. But in VO, it's like, well, if you can believably portray that character with your voice, with your acting, whatever, then you have a shot at that.
Yeah, that is the best.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
This one's for Kira. What was it like voice acting for you?
It was really exciting. So it's interesting because the game had been out for a couple years already, and a lot of people that I know were in it, and I didn't have an agent at the time, so I wasn't getting to audition for it specifically, but I really wanted to. I was like, oh, maybe someday, you know, this game is going to go on for, what, 5-10 years? Like, eventually there has to be a character that I'm right for, right? Or, you know, I'll have to audition eventually. And then I signed with what was my agent at the time, and I got auditions for a couple characters, didn't book those, and then eventually the batch with Shinobu and Yelan came in, so I auditioned for them. And, you know, obviously because everything's so confidential, it's all like, the characters are codenamed and everything, and there was like barely any visual reference to go off of, but, you know, Shinobu really appealed to me, and I was like, oh, I hope I book this character, but I'm not going to hold out hope, because again, so competitive. And then I got a call back for her, and so I was like, okay, that's a good sign. But then I didn't hear anything for like a couple weeks after the callback, so I was like, oh, I guess I didn't book it. Well, hopefully, you know, if they liked me, I'll get some more auditions for the next one. And then they're like, hey, so you're booked. And I actually hadn't played the game at the time. I was like familiar with the characters, because I had so many friends who worked on it. But so I went in and did the auditions. The studio was like an hour away, so it was quite a commute each day for like the 3 weeks that I worked on it. And then about partway through recording, I went home and I was like, okay, I need to start playing this game so that I at least like know enough about it, like enough about kind of like the story, the gameplay, to where if I go to conventions, I can talk about it or whatever. And long story short, I ended up getting hooked, and now I have a Twitch channel where I stream it.
3 weeks?
Yeah, three weeks of recording for it, like 4-hour sessions, yeah.
That is awesome. I've never had anything like that.
It's a very story-heavy game. There's so much lore.
That's so cool. That's awesome. Okay, yes?
Do you have any recommendations for someone who's trying to improve their own voice acting skills?
Do we have any recommendations for somebody who's trying to improve their own voice acting skills? Yes, get coaching. I coach. There's skillshub.life that you have access to lots of amazing coaches. It's started by Jennifer Hale. I coach on there as well. You can coach in increments. You can coach with somebody for 20 minutes and 20 minutes and 20 minutes or whatever if you want to work on certain things. Yeah, that's the main thing. Get training. I still get coaching. You know, I've been doing this for 30 years and I still get coached.
Yeah, I think that I would just say, yeah, any kind of training and experience that you have is always going to help you. If it's that kind of coaching, if it's even working on a play at your local community college, I mean, or community theater, whatever. I mean, it's that the acting experience and just doing it. Whatever is accessible to you, which now with the internet is pretty much everything. The training and the experience. I had a theater director one time who said, you know, I think maybe acting is one of the few professions that, not necessarily you guys, but that some people might look at it and go, oh, I could do that. All you gotta do is talk. You know? That you don't really need any training for that. You don't need any experience. I worked, one of my jobs that I had is for 8 years I worked in a talent agency. That was very eye-opening. And I would have people that called there and very, very confident about their own abilities. And one of my favorite calls ever, when I gave them the spiel about, well, you know, send in your headshot and your resume, et cetera, and you know, make sure you tell us about your experience and your training. And this woman said, what if I was born with a train? I know, that's what she said. And I said, you mean like a choo-choo train? And then I started laughing so much that I had to put her on hold. But yeah, so no, anyway, no, she had this idea that she was just born naturally gifted with so much talent and ability that she didn't need any training. We should just sign her right up because she's going to be the next big thing.
Well, it's funny. You always find out if you always find out if you do have any of that talent whenever they say, "Oh, can you do this? Let's find out."
Yeah.
Hey, can you do this accent? I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, to go along with what Spike and Tiffany said, absolutely, acting training is the biggest thing. Usually what I recommend for people is to take some group classes first. It doesn't even have to be voice acting. You know, even if you're like me and you're like, I know specifically I want to do voice, it was a theater class in college that like taught me the most that I know about acting itself. So any kind of acting class, anything that teaches you how to get in the mind of your character, break down a scene, all that kind of stuff. Because the other thing that in terms of like practical skills is because voice acting is so much cold reading, like a lot of times we don't even get the script before we go in the booth. So, you know, sometimes we don't even know what we're working on. Sometimes, like especially for a lot of the mobile game projects that I do and stuff, we'll just go in and they'll be like, okay, so today you're playing like 4 characters, here's the character description, here's maybe a Chinese reference, let's go. So you have to really be able to quickly break down copy and interpret it, but you kind of have to do all that groundwork so that you can make those decisions in the moment. There's some people who have a lot of innate instinct naturally, but even then it's like everyone benefits from training, in my opinion. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, cold reading is, I'm glad you brought that up. That is, it's like probably the #1 skill you have to have as a voice actor. I mean, just as an actor generally, but as a voice actor because we don't get to see those scripts before we're in the studio. And I would also say improv. I think improv is great to have as a background just because it makes you, it puts you more in that mindset of being accepting of changes and being in the moment and being able to accept direction and going with the flow and not, you know, a lot of people have the idea that, oh, well, maybe if they could get the script and everything in ahead of time and they could practice it and whatever, that doesn't necessarily help you because you can get too fixated on your own idea of how that ought to be delivered, and the director's going to have a different idea of how they want you to deliver it. Plus, if you get too focused on thinking about, like, this is how the line is written, a lot of times you go in and that's not going to be the final script, or there's going to be changes. So just really being able to go with the flow, take direction, and being able to change on a dime.
Yeah, and another thing, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no, that's it. That's it. Yeah.
I was going to just add a couple more things because this is something that comes up so often in the communities that I help with. Singing training is another thing that will be helpful in terms of, you know, you don't have to be a singer to be a voice actor, but just learning about vocal support, projection, you know, how to utilize your voice safely without hurting it. All that kind of stuff is really important, and a lot of things can carry over from singing to VO in terms of like the technical aspects of using your voice as your instrument. And the other thing that I suggest is to get involved in, you know, hobby stuff, because it's low, you know, to do it as a career, it's so competitive, it takes a lot of time, and it's hard to just jump into that. But if you do stuff online, you know, do indie projects, find student animators, people making class projects, like all that kind of stuff, game jams. You know, obviously don't get taken advantage of, like don't work for free on a commercial production or anything like that, but for just people making stuff with their friends, people making stuff for school online, that's a great way to just get practice, learn how to work on a deadline, learn how to kind of get your equipment from home. And voiceactingclub.com is the site that I founded that I highly recommend checking out. We have a ton of free resources.
Cool. I'm going to look at it right now.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and you know, something that I want to put a button on what you said about working on these kind of projects with like student projects and you know, up and coming developers and stuff like that. I think that's so important. I mean, there's not a lot that I would personally be willing to do for free at this point in my career, but everybody does and should start out doing stuff for free, whether it's community theater or student films or whatever, because that's how you learn and you get experience, and also, you know, you make connections with people. You know, you work on student projects and then you end up over the years doing all kinds of stuff with these people. You know, you're coming up together, and I think, you know, I'll work on a student project with somebody for a very small amount of money, and I think maybe this person is going to make the next big video game, the next big anime or whatever, and yeah.
And hopefully they'll remember you.
And it happens. I literally have, I'm sorry, I know I'm like going off on this topic so much, but I have a story about that. So to go back to kind of what I said at the beginning of the panel about like Newgrounds and stuff like that, does anyone remember a game called Super Smash Flash back in the day?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was the game announcer for that. A lot of people don't realize that. And I did that when I was like, I think I was like school, about to graduate. That was a hobby project on the internet that I just did from, again, just emailing people, reaching out. And so now that, and I think the game developer was like a teenager at the time too, but so now he is making a completely original game in that style called Framemakers, and he reached out to me all these years later and said, do you want to be the game announcer for my new game, which is going to be like all platform, like all that kind of stuff. So it's just a really cool story how that worked out.
That's going to be a paid
Yeah, absolutely.
job.
Oh, yeah.
And you met him doing, you know,
Hobby stuff when I was a teenager,
Right.
yeah.
Guys, this is what's important. Relationships. In business, in life, they're important. Work them. I have on my YouTube channel, I did a video called How to Build Relationships Now. Something like that. It's all about relationship building, because 95+% of all the voiceover jobs I get, not through an agent.
right,
Is not.
right.
You know, I'll send it through my agent, you know, if there's a +10 on there, but other than that, it's like, I get it. And they're like,
Right.
what's this stuff? I'm
Right.
like, come on, man.
Yeah, it is a lot about relationships. Because yeah, most of the projects, especially like anime projects that I get, is based on my reputation, people knowing who I am, and even if it's not someone that I've necessarily worked with that person, they know me because they were referred by a mutual friend of ours who has worked with me. So yeah, it is important.
We got a few more minutes.
5 minutes here. We got some
Yes,
more
right there.
So what would the process be for deciding on a voice for a character?
What is the process be to deciding on a voice for a character? That's personal. Everybody has a different way.
No.
If I see a picture of it, I go with the physicality first off, because you know what it looks like. I'm like, okay, I get that. But then I go to the description, and they tell you sometimes it's completely different from what your initial thought was. But sometimes we don't get that. Sometimes we don't get anything but a description, so we just have to use our imaginations, and that's where the improv comes in really nicely.
Yes, indeed. I read a quote one time many, many years ago that was something along the lines of, I see the character and then their voice comes out of my mouth. And I mean, it is kind of like that. And, you know, when you're auditioning, most of the time you would have an opportunity to give at least 2 different reads. And then if it's something, like we were saying, that, you know, you're getting cast in this job based on that director having worked with you before, and they have a good idea of what your range is and the kind of things that you can do, I find a lot of times the director is just there in the studio working with you, and they'll tell you, like, oh, do you remember that character that you played? Oh, it's kind of like that. Or let's, you know, like, that's the base. We'll start from that. Or, you know, you just kind of talk with the director about the direction that they want, how they see the character. And, yeah, a lot of it is just working with the director and figuring out how they want to do it. But you have to bring something to that yourself. You do have to make decisions, and this goes back to your acting training, really, and being able to, that's a snap decision that you have to make, is what is this character about with whatever information you have. It might be a few adjectives, it might be a few sentences, maybe you have a picture. Yeah, you just have to make a choice and do it. You can't spend hours deciding on it, you just make a decision and try it.
And one of the things, because I work on so much localized media between dubbing and games and stuff like that, and then for dubbing specifically, like anime and things like that, one thing that I find really helpful in kind of informing and refining things, because we don't always or often get this for the audition, but if I'm going in to do a show, we will preview the Japanese of each line first, or sometimes a few lines in a run. So I always try, you know, unless the director or the client wants something different, I usually try to kind of honor the original Japanese performance, because I feel like, well, this is, you know, what the creators intended and this and that. So I will like try to match the original, but in English. And obviously, just by virtue of being a different person, we will bring some of ourselves and our unique spin to the role.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question. We got to move fast. That man way back in the back. Yeah, you had your hand up for a while, so.
Whenever y'all talk about, someone asked a question about theater, internationally. I was wondering, would y'all ever recommend like getting these D&D groups and playing D&D groups or in-class skills developing character building going that?
Okay. So would we recommend getting into like a D&D group to develop character skills, etc.? Sure.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great idea. That's sure. Yeah, absolutely. I remember
It worked for Critical Role.
Yeah. Years.
They're doing okay.
I probably had somebody ask me, this is like 20, 25 years ago, something about if I did role playing, and I was like, yeah, for a living.
Yeah. Hey. All right. What do you think? Kira?
Oh, yeah, totally. Anything that can get you kind of into character, and that can manifest so many different ways. For some people it's D&D, other people it's like streaming, VTubing, other people it's making their own projects, like literally whatever just gets you in that creative mindset and, learning to portray a character and act out scenes.
Whatever it is, get out there. Get out there and do something. If you have a podcast, great. A Twitch stream, great. Whatever it is, if you are wanting to do something like what we do, you got to get out there and get seen and heard as fast as possible. So I think that is it for us. We're going to be back at our tables. I think we're doing lunch or something. I don't know. I'm hungry, so I'm going to eat something. Thank you all so much for coming out and talking to us. That's so amazing. We're blessed to be able to be up here. Thank you.